When accused or questioned, most people instinctively defend themselves, believing it's the right thing to do. But what if that instinct is precisely what disarms you? The Machiavellian art of non-defense. In the intricate dance of power dynamics, the moment you feel compelled to defend yourself is often the moment you lose. This isn't about being right or wrong, it's about perception. As Machiavelli keenly understood, true power isn't found in justifying your actions but in rendering such justification unnecessary. When someone accuses you, questions your worth, or challenges your intent, the average response is to explain, clarify, or deny. "I didn't mean it, you misunderstood, I'm not like that." This feels noble, even reasonable. However, to a Machiavellian mind, this immediate defense is a fatal flaw. By defending yourself, you subtly acknowledge that you're weak enough to need to, and in power games, perception is paramount. They don't see a victim, they see vulnerability. Why defending yourself undermines your power? Defending yourself rarely convinces anyone. Instead, it shifts the power balance away from you. When you justify your actions, you're playing on their terms, accepting their framing, and tacitly granting them the authority to question you. Once they have that, they control the narrative. Even if you're objectively correct, you often appear guilty because only the insecure rush to explain. The strong, by contrast, allow silence to burn, letting accusations float untouched. The Machiavellian approach is to turn the accusation into a mirror, forcing the accuser to doubt themselves. Make them appear overly emotional, obsessed, bitter, or unstable. The one who speaks first often loses control of the narrative, and as Machiavelli knew, whoever controls the frame controls the outcome. Most people defend themselves because they crave understanding and believe that enough explanation will lead to vindication. This isn't strategy. It's emotional weakness. You don't want clarity, you want control. Clarity is for therapy, control is for power. Power isn't born from being understood, it comes from being feared, respected, and untouchable. Consider the most powerful people you've encountered. They aren't usually the loudest or the most liked. They are the ones who wield silence like a weapon, who make you second-guess yourself with a mere stare, who remain unflinched when attacked. Machiavelli's wisdom is clear: he who explains submits. He who remains silent forces others to fill in the blanks, and they often overestimate him. The power of silence and calculated non-reaction. When you don't react, your accusers become uncomfortable. They start doubting their own words, looking for validation and finding none. Their power shrinks while yours expands because you've done the one thing an emotional person cannot handle: you've forced them to confront their own rhetoric in silence. This is how you flip the power dynamic, letting their accusation die in the echo of its own weakness. Imagine walking into a room, and someone throws a subtle or direct jab at your success, attitude, or past. Everyone turns to see your reaction. Your Machiavellian move? Say nothing. No defense, no retaliation, no smirk, just calm, total stillness. In that moment, you become untouchable. Everyone in the room is forced to ask, why didn't he react? Does he know something we don't? Is he above this? Did that attack just make him stronger? You've just flipped the entire social frame. People aren't watching the accusation. They're watching your response. And silence, delivered with presence, speaks louder than any justification. Machiavelli didn't just study politics, he studied psychology. He understood that power isn't what you say, but what people believe you could say but choose not to. The coldest move: inverting the accusation. Sometimes, you don't just ignore the accusation, you invert it. If someone calls you manipulative, smile, look past them, and calmly say, if that's how you see it. This isn't defensive or apologetic, it's cool, neutral detachment. They were hoping for a fight, for you to squirm. Instead, they're left holding their own weapon. Guilt sets in. They wonder if they overstepped, if they embarrass themselves, if they look insecure. And they do. You've taken their energy and made them carry it without lifting a finger. The silence becomes unbearable, not for you, but for the one who expected a reaction. The tables turn. They thought they were the accuser. Now they're exposed as begging for attention. You, meanwhile, become something far more powerful than innocent, you become untouchable. Machiavelli grasped that words aren't for clarifying truth but for obscuring it. When attacked, subtly or directly, they want you to fight in the fog, to drown in emotional explanation. The more you explain, the less certain you appear. So, let them fill the silence. They'll overplay, repeat themselves, and start looking desperate, emotional, and unstable. You said nothing, yet they're now under judgment. The crowd isn't listening to what's said, they're watching who remains calm and who is rattled. That's social power, and it doesn't come from being right, it comes from being untouchable. Real-world applications. Consider a business meeting where someone subtly undermines you. I'm not sure that strategy is really thought through. Most people lean forward, explain, prove, clarify, and get nervous. The room senses it. The Machiavellian operator, however, leans back, waits, perhaps even smirks. If they speak, it's not a defense, it's a redirect. Let's hear your strategy, then. Now the attacker has to perform, and the room's focus shifts to them. Silence from the confident is accusation without words, it makes others feel small without you doing anything. In personal relationships, the stakes are even higher. If your partner says, "You don't care about me anymore," the average person will panic, launching into explanations and reassurances, thus validating the emotional frame. The Machiavellian approach is different, don't dismiss or argue. Let the weight of the accusation hang. Watch them feel their own drama echo. Then, calmly, respond, "That's not how I see it." Short, grounded, no explanation. They feel uncertain, question their tone, and wonder if they were too reactive. You've held power over the emotional tempo, and whoever controls the tempo controls the frame. The ultimate Machiavellian tactic, disappearance. A colder tactic still, when insulted, don't reply, don't respond, don't acknowledge. But don't block them either. Let your absence sit like a mirror, letting them stew in the silence of being ignored. This breaks people in two ways: they realize you didn't even deem them worthy of a response, and they start spinning internal narratives that often destroy their composure. Why? Because the average person thrives on emotional validation. Take that away, and they wither, spiral, and look increasingly desperate while you remain perfectly still. You win, not by proving anything, but because they self-destruct trying to get a reaction. The elite move, turning accusation into accuser's weakness. Instead of defending yourself when attacked, make their accusation look like a sign of their weakness. Someone calls you arrogant, strange that confidence makes people so uncomfortable. Someone says you're manipulative, only people who can't be influenced say that. Someone calls you fake, everyone says that when they stop getting what they want. You don't just deny, you make it their insecurity. Now, they're scrambling to defend themselves. This is not merely a reversal, it's a power judo throw, using their emotional force to trigger their public collapse. Machiavelli would call this, the turn of the blade. Do not meet the sword with a shield, let the attacker fall on his own blade. The world teaches you to defend your reputation, to explain, to clear your name. Machiavelli saw the trap: the moment you chase innocence, you admit guilt. The true strategist never plays that game. Instead, he appears too composed to be shaken, too elevated to care, too clear on his position to explain it. Slowly, those who try to tear him down appear unstable, reactive, jealous, and weak. The more you defend, the more it looks like you need to. The more you ignore, the more dangerous they assume you are. That assumption is where power is born. Redefining your reputation. Most people think power is about proving yourself, proving you're right, not what they say, or better than their perception. But the second you try to prove anything, you validate the other person's judgment. And when you hand someone that validation, you hand them your leash. In a group setting, if someone publicly jabs you, you always act like you know everything. He's always like this. Most people tense up, laugh it off, or, worse, explain, thinking they're saving face. What they're doing is confirming that a hit was landed. Everyone watches the defense, which only makes the original jab seem true. The Machiavellian instead pauses, holds silence for 2 seconds, scans the room with quiet amusement. Then, if needed, offers something calm, precise, and dismissive. You seem emotional today, interesting take, or simply a long, still gaze. The attacker fidgets, looks for backup, tries to explain their joke. The heat shifts to them because your lack of reaction loudly tells the room, you're not the one under judgment, they are. Digital arena and narrative dominance. In the digital world, escalation is even faster. Comments, posts, call-outs, people trying to bait you into reacting. Machiavelli would impress upon you this truth: in the court of public opinion, silence speaks guilt unless your silence commands fear. The tactic. When attacked online, don't defend or explain. Distort. Don't address the claim, redirect the energy back into the crowd. Example: someone calls you toxic or manipulative. Instead of a tearful defense or a long clarification, post, people always call you dangerous when they can't control you. You've reframed the accusation into a badge of power. They look bitter, you look unfazed. The audience questions who's really in control. This isn't damage control, it's narrative dominance. 3 tools for Machiavellian non-defense. Silence, the default. Cold, powerful, leaves them exposed. Deflection, reframe the narrative without acknowledging the jab. Precision cuts, short, sharp truths that end the game immediately. You're full of yourself. Confidence upsets the insecure. You're fake. I don't owe you authenticity. You think you're better than everyone? No, I just don't think like everyone. These aren't defenses, they're status assertions. They don't say, I'm not guilty. They say, you can't touch me. The Machiavellian never begs to be seen as good, he dares people to see him as bad and walks taller for it. The endgame, destroying enemies with your stillness. When you refuse to defend yourself, your enemies become unhinged. They expected a battle and are swinging at smoke. They escalate, push harder, get more dramatic, and expose more of their insecurity. The more they do, the more you rise in the eyes of others because you've made them perform their own collapse. This is the Machiavellian endgame: you don't destroy your enemies, you let their obsession with you destroy them. Being misunderstood isn't as dangerous as being predictable. The misunderstood man has mystery, the predictable man is easily manipulated. People constantly trying to clear things up are seen as desperate. Those who remain calmly misunderstood are feared. Machiavelli's adage, it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both, extends to, it's better to be confusing than predictable. The confused man is cautious, he watches you, doesn't act rashly, which means you control the field. Cultivating an aura of immunity. You don't need a good reputation to win, you need a strong one. A good reputation implies being clean, soft, agreeable. A strong reputation doesn't mean being liked or trusted, but no one dares move against you casually. When you never defend yourself, your reputation isn't about what people believe but what they fear you'll do next. You stop fighting for approval and instead create an aura that makes people cautious. Even your silence feels like a decision, and every move you don't make becomes a move in their mind. The final evolution is not just silence but aura, a presence so composed, secure, and far above the petty noise that accusations simply evaporate. This isn't emotionlessness. It's being unbothered by design. Once you've trained yourself not to defend, explain, or seek validation, you cross a line where your very existence becomes the defense. Power becomes effortless. Think of those rare individuals who never explain themselves. They don't post long rants or argue with critics. Yet, people respect them more. Silence in the face of accusation creates myth, it invites interpretation. The human mind, lacking explanation, fills the void with strength. People assume you must be dangerous, that you know something they don't, that you're so secure you don't blink when challenged. That assumption is what makes people follow you. Machiavelli cared not about being good but about being in control. The one who never defends is always in control of perception, even when surrounded by lies. Here's the paradox: the more you explain yourself, the more alone you look, because no one feels the need to step in when you're arguing on your own behalf. But if you remain calm, silent, unfazed, people start to defend you. That was uncalled for, he didn't deserve that, why are you still pushing when he hasn't even responded? They become your shield. And what's better than defending yourself? Letting others do it for you without asking. That's Machiavellian leverage. Let the crowd argue your case while you remain above the noise. You're not just respected, you're elevated. Building your fortress, stone by stone. This doesn't happen overnight. You build it by acting with restraint, choosing stillness over reaction, and never explaining more than you must. Start by never correcting insults clearly meant to provoke. Let them speak, let them echo. Your silence tells the room the insult didn't even register. Respond to indirect shots with calm confusion, not offense. Is that how you see it? Said with total serenity, dismantling the emotional energy. Use short, closing phrases instead of defenses. Noted. Okay. Think what you like. Time will tell. Each closes the door, ending the scene without inviting more debate. Study your facial expressions, body language, and gaze. The Machiavellian never twitches, flinches, or tenses. Stillness is armor. The more still you are when others lose control, the more your power silently expands. When people don't know how to provoke you, they fear you because you become unreadable, a mirror reflecting their own instability. Machiavelli would say, the most dangerous man is not the one who attacks first. It is the one who never needs to. You'll reach a point where attacks stop, not because you fought them, but because people know they'll lose before they start. Your presence declares, I don't play defense. I let others destroy themselves trying to reach me. There's a difference between strength and immunity. Strength still flinches, reacts, gets emotional, even if it fights back. Immunity doesn't even acknowledge the hit. That's the Machiavellian ideal. You don't win the argument, you end it before it starts by never needing to answer. When you no longer defend yourself, people stop seeing you as someone who needs to be put on trial. You're not on their level, you've moved beyond the court of public approval. The only judgment that matters is your own. From this point, you don't live in defense, you live in definition. You define your image, your tone, your silence. People feel that certainty in your eyes, the calmness in your posture, the danger in your quiet. You're not resisting anymore, you're commanding. And that's when the room shifts. The crowd speaks less. Your enemies grow quieter. Your name carries weight, not because you fought for it, but because you never explained it. Never defending yourself doesn't mean never speaking. It means speaking only when it shifts the power. When you say something, it should feel like a move, not a response. Because every time you don't explain yourself, every time you hold still while the world spins, you become the one thing they can't control, a man who answers to no one. What do you think is the hardest part about applying this no defense philosophy in everyday interactions?